Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Today, we're discussing how to grow your business through public speaking with my guest, Mike Domitrz. Our topics include how to align your mission with your speech before getting in front of an audience, how to define and then find your target market, common mistakes that speakers make and how to avoid them, and more golden nuggets of advice. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Today we're here with Mike Domitrz, author, Hall of Fame speaker, and founder of the Center for Respect. And we're going to be talking about how to get your message out with speaking. And I love to jump right in, Mike. As far as speaking goes, have you just always been a natural? What's your story for doing speaking at the level you do it at?
Well, for me, being in front of audiences was a natural. So as a kid, I was in theater. So I was the performer. But that's very different than speaking. I'll give you an example. There are a lot of musicians who will want to go into speaking. They'll be like, hey, I want to take my guitar, I want to and incorporate it into corporate speaking. It's a brilliant idea and it can really work. And they often bomb because it's completely different than speaking. So there are parts that work really well and integrate really well, but speaking and engaging an audience is completely different. And everything you were taught in school about giving a public speech is usually the worst advice to ever follow. So, remember what everybody's taught in Speech 101 or communications in high school, tell them what you're going to do, then do it this way. And it's so robotic. Audiences do not connect to that.
So talk a little bit more about that. I think that's really interesting. What's some advice about engaging with the audience and not just talking at them?
Yeah, it's critical. So I'll give you an example. You get a speaker who goes, I just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. You can too. Okay, I don't want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. What does this have to do? And then they tell a story for an hour about them climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And what they should have walked out if they did that. And by the way, it can be a great story to share. I know people who have done that and use it and they're great. But there are other people who just miss the boat. And here's how they missed the boat. When they said, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, they should have paused and said, what's your Mount Kilimanjaro? Is it your relationship with your kids? Is it your workplace that you struggle to enjoy walking into every day? And make it really down to earth. Now you're making it about me. And as long as you then weave me in the whole way through, instead of telling me your story, now we're on a journey together. That's my story. And you're sharing some tools for me. So that's a great example of very quick interaction. Just a pause of a question to the audience. This is a sincere question. I'll give you not the cheesy this. So if you agree with me, yes or yes, it's just like, that's not real engagement. That's just false affirmation. And you'll see these gimmicks used all the time with people who want to sell to the audience. They'll use false affirmations just to psychologically get the room with them, but it doesn't mean that people are actually feeling themselves in the story.
What are some more ways this is interesting. What are some more ways to engage with the audience done the right way, of course, for right now?
Yeah. So done the right way is, I actually believe you start with a question. If you see a lot of speakers, they come out and they start with a story. And I do that sometimes, but more often than not, I start with a question. So for instance, I speak with everything from corporate so right now we're coming from Texas. I'm in a hotel room because I'm speaking to the Army tomorrow at Fort Cavazos. And that audience is very different than if I speak to a high school about respect in their relationships. If I speak to a high school, I might walk out and say, so do most people ask or go for it? Yell the answer, ask, go for it. They all yell, go for it. Everybody goes for it. Well, they just set the stage for my whole speech. And now when I challenge them, why don't people ask? They can't get mad at me. They can't go, well, how dare you say we don't ask? You just said you don't ask. I'm simply asking why. And then they give me the whys. I get to break down those whys, show they're mythical. And then they're sitting there going, well, what's the other option? Well, that asking thing we were talking about earlier. And now they want to know it because they realize the systems they've been taught before today don't work and have been failing them for so long. Now, what I just said was about dating, and yet it actually relates to every topic somebody can talk about because all the people you talk about in an audience have a struggle. They've been using a system that has led them continually back to the same struggle. And they have falsely believed this system will get them out. And so you have to break them from those beliefs and help them realize those are false, those are myths, and you want a new solution, and here it is. By having a conversation, they're having the discovery instead of you proving something. And when you're a speaker trying to be the smartest one in the room, nobody likes that. When you are simply helping me realize something about myself and I'm the brilliant one, I love you. And I might not remember your name, Mark. I might just remember that so-and-so keynote. Or like when I'm doing high schools, I remember that's the kiss you guy. That's the consent guy. I'm okay with that because they're applying it to them and it's not about me.
Well, this is awesome. When you get on stage, we just spoke a little bit about what you do on stage. Let's back it up just a little bit for the entrepreneur that wants to share his or her mission with the world. How do you get started? Because I would imagine it's different than my end game being a keynote speech. If my end game is I need to share my mission and build a business, how do you even get started there?
Yeah, well, and this is the key. Are you truly mission focused? Because that is a big question entrepreneurs need to decide. If you tell me everything you do in your business is about making another dollar, don't tell me you're mission based, because that's a different focus. Right. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's a different focus. Yeah. And here's the difference, Mark. If I am running a business that is mission focused and I want to get it out to the world, I'm happy to go to Rotary. I'm happy to go to Lions Club. I'm happy to go to all these other groups to spread the mission so people can learn about my organization. I'm happy to go to trade associations and do a 15-minute talk, not a 45-minute talk. But all those talks have to be me helping the room solve a problem in alignment with my mission. Because then they'll see me as a solution for them. They'll see me as a resource they want to bring in or a product they want to buy. But I can't, without selling is the key. If I'm selling, then I'm not serving the mission. I'm about getting my dollar at the end of the day. But if I'm brilliantly presenting and you want the solution at the end and I didn't sell it, it's because the solution fits you. And that's a beautifully written speech because it's about the audience. And it's not some ulterior motive over here. There's a plus side to it. I'm going to gain clients, but it's because I served them versus I made them feel they had to have this. I wasn't manipulative. We don't want to do that. We don't want to emotionally manipulate. And there's a lot of that out there.
So how do you, again, this is great. How do you, I'll say, craft and define a good mission? How do you get that just like behind the closed doors in front of a computer screen or an open notebook with a pen and paper? How do you craft a mission that is worthy of being shared? Where do you start?
Yeah. So here's where I tell people to start. What fires you up the most in your work about the work you do? What truly is the mission? So I'll give you an example, Mark. I get brought into corporations to talk about creating a culture of respect. Now, sometimes that's happening because they're having problems. Other times that's happening because they genuinely care about their people and they want to bring me in and totally raise the standards, raise the bar corporate wide, right? But other times I told you about that high school audience. It's bringing me in about dating and sexual decision-making. Well, those are very different, yet they're the exact same mission. So here's the difference. I can be brought in to stop sexual harassment or stop sexual assault. But my mission is to actually build mutually amazing relationships. So I get a kick when somebody comes up to me and goes, that just changed my marriage. That just changed my workplace relationship. That the positive is where I get fired up. Oh my gosh, tell me more. And they start sharing what they're doing in their life differently because they've learned how to build a mutually amazing relationship in their life and they want to do it across the board. So my mission is to build mutually amazing relationships. The way I do it can be with respect in the workplace, can be with respect in sexual relationships. Those are the platforms and the mediums. This is a mistake a lot of people make. They go, my mission is to speak all over the world. No, that's the job. The mission should be the kick you get out of the speaking, like what fires you up. So that's the first thing to do. And dig deep. Really ask yourself, is this true when I'm doing A, B, and C? It might be true for when you're doing A, but it doesn't fit B. It ain't your mission. You're close, but you're not there. So I'll tell you a mistake I made. And this is a good example. For the first 17 years of my work, my company was called the Date Safe Project. But during the last 5 of those 17, I was starting to get corporate inquiries and military, and they're going, but we're not dating. It didn't align. And I said, what's the core issue here? the core issue at about everything I do is respect. Everything I do. And we changed our company name to the Center for Respect. And suddenly that worked beautifully with our mission of building mutually amazing relationships, right? So it could be everywhere. The mistake I made at first was, well, this is what I do 80% of the time, so I'll name it that. And I forgot it isn't going to work for the other 20%. And when the other 20% became 50% of my business, it was a real problem. So you want to make sure it aligns across the board.
Well, this is okay. With this, once you have your mission defined, and what you just said is a beautiful story, I'd like to learn, how do you then find your target audience? Because you have those people that say, oh, I can connect all over the world, or they can go in 10 different directions, Rotary clubs, professional associations. Once you have a mission, how do you define a target audience so you know what to do and you're not just spinning your wheels talking to, a group of people every day randomly?
Yeah, Mark, it's a great question. It's probably the number one mistake people make is they go, I'm for everybody. I can do everything. But what can you speak about? What speech do you need? Whoa. Time out. People want experts. They actually don't want speakers. They want experts who can entertain, experts who engage. But nowadays, there's a lot less people who are hiring most of us that will be watching this. Unless you're a high-level entertainer, they want an expert. So they either want entertainment or expertise. But if it's entertainment, you better be a world-class entertainer. So therefore, most of us fall under experts. So that means I need an expertise. So where does your expertise fit most comfortably, easily? Where's the low-hanging fruit for your expertise? Focus there first. Start there. So for me, I got started doing this when I was 20 years old. So it made sense for me to start speaking in high schools and middle schools, not in corporations. Nobody was going to hire me in corporations on this topic then. So I started there, got momentum, did colleges. Then in early 2000s, the military came to me and said, can you do for us what you're doing for universities? And military is one of our biggest groups we work with around the world for the last 20 years since then. But I started with one. When you start with 5 at the same time, how do you get any momentum anywhere? Because you're so spread out. So they always say focus in the niche. There's truth in that. Get one niche going, then add a niche, then add a niche. And you might not want to add the niche after you get the one niche going. You never know.
Well, once you find a niche, or let's just say a niche 2 or 3, just in case people, I don't know how to do one, fine, do 2 or 3.
Yep.
When you're getting started, how do you get the gigs? I mean, what do you do to approach people as an unknown speaker and relatively new to that world? How do you get gigs?
Well, first of all, network. Get involved with the number one association there is in the world for professional speaking. That's the National Speakers Association.
Yep.
They had state chapters in almost every state. That's going to let you meet other speakers and really learn the business of how to do what you're talking about now, the revenue generation side, the lead building side. A lot of that is in there. But here's what it's going to come down to. You're going to have to knock on doors just like any other business. People will make the mistake of thinking, well, I built this company over here. How long did it take you to make that company successful? 5 to 10 years. But I want to become a speaker in 12 months. Well, how come your other business didn't take just 12 months? Because it's a business. That's why. So you're going to have a long-term plan here. There are speakers who take off. I took off in my second round. Like I did this when I was young, came back, then took off. But I had a round that struggled first. So the mistake is to thinking, how do I explode this in 3 months? It's just not how most businesses are going to work, especially in speaking. The more you have a reputation, the more you get booked. Well, that takes time. That takes time and proven results. So what you can do to get started is look at what industry seems like the best fit for me and I'm relevant to. You'd be amazed, Mark, how many speakers are out there with topics that aren't relevant. So look, if nobody's going to buy that, I can't help you. It might be an amazing speech that has no relevancy to the markets you're working with. So first of all, is this a true pain point to the world you're working with? Who is it a pain point for? Do they invest in solving that pain point? Right? These are critical questions. Oh, they do? Who does? Who in that company is in charge of providing that training, that conference, that event, and start knocking on doors? Start making calls, start emailing, introduce yourself. The quicker you can have video footage of you doing what you do, nowadays, it's everything. If you reach out and go, where can I see? And you go, I don't have any video yet. Then they're going to sit there and go, well, there's no way this person's credible. So at least have interviews, at least have YouTube footage, do a webinar for yourself that's 45 minutes long. Nobody needs to know how many are in the audience.
Ooh.
Record it on Zoom and go, here's a 45-minute live virtual program. Just make sure it's really good. And send them that. Send them a 15-minute version until you can get what we call a sizzle reel. When you get a sizzle reel, that's about a 5-minute preview video. That's how you get booked. Most people want to see a sizzle reel. But until you have it, here's some, here are the other things I just mentioned that you can do.
You touched on a few of them. I'd love to do a little bit of a deeper dive because it's good to know what to do. It's also worth its weight in gold to know what not to do. What are some other common mistakes that in the world of you're sharing a mission? I'm not a keynoter, but I need to be speaking. What are some common mistakes that speakers make that they should avoid?
Yeah, well, a common mistake people will make is they'll buy formulaic speaker coaching. And so what that means is they look and say, oh, I need to grow this business quick. I'm going to spend $500 or $5,000 on this speaker program over here. How to make 6 figures in 6 months, those kind of things, which right away should be a red flag, because if you care about a mission and it doesn't sound like they're mission focused, sounds like they're money focused, you're already out of alignment. You're already in trouble. But here's the other problem. Everybody watching that program is learning the same formula, which means you are going to be a copycat. I'm going to be able to watch you speak and probably know what program you learned how to speak from because you're so formulaic. And if that program does not include time one-on-one with the master of the program, then you're not actually getting insights like a coach would provide, seeing you from the outside. You're trying to be your own coach. And anybody who's ever coached knows that don't work. Being your own coach does not work. There's an old phrase, you can't see the label when you're inside the jar. So if you're going to get coaching with a one-on-one experience included. Even if it's a group of 5 to 10 people and you're going for the weekend, make sure you're going to get what we call hot seat opportunity, where you are in front of the coach. They're going to say nope or yep, try this or try, but they're going to shred it apart to make you better. That's a big mistake people make, is they buy programs or models that are not real coaching. I'm a big fan of getting coaching, huge fan of it. I think everybody should get it, but get the right coaching so that avoid that mistake. Number 2, creating a false label about yourself you can't back up. So you go to websites and they say America's #1 speaker on blank, blank, blank. You better be, because if the person landing is in that field and hasn't heard of you, you look like a fool, because they're sitting there going, #1, never even heard of you. And they might even mock you to others in the industry for saying that. It's totally different, Mark. If you've been in the industry, you have a reputation, and you say one of the leading, that's legit. The moment you say the #1, you better be able to back it. Now, you can use language like only if it's true. So I've had people say, Mike is the only person who does blank, blank, blank in a 1-hour keynote. But you know who I have saying it? Them. It's their quote on my website. It's their quote on it's not me going, I'm the only one. Even when I talk on the phone to somebody, goes, what differentiates you? Here's what my clients say. Clients say I'm the only one, right? So it's about feedback from the industry versus me bragging, maybe inappropriately, if it's not accurate. So over marketing, getting the wrong advice, places for advice. NSA is a great place to get advice. It's a great place to start, that I mentioned earlier, National Speaker Association, because it's going to put you around people who have been there, done that. And then the biggest mistake is trying to think this is a 3-month business, or it's a hobby that you want to make 6 figures off. Well, how many hobbies make 6 figures? If it's going to be a business, you got to treat this like a business. And the last thing I would say is trying to do way too much. So they're starting this business and they're trying to become #1 on YouTube at the same time, #1 on Instagram at the same time, #1 there at the same time, write a book at the same time, do this. And what happens is nothing's excelling.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have you do less amazing than do a lot average. So pick your lanes, excel in the lane, and then add another lane. Excel in that lane, then add another lane. But you'd be amazed. And I made this mistake. That's why I'm speaking from reality here for me. I came in and implemented everything I heard. Now, while that gave me some early advantages, it burned me out over time. And I don't want anybody burning out. I want you loving what you're doing. I was able to rejuvenate, but it wasn't a fun process to get through.
No, I'd imagine not. I mean, as far as everything we've been talking about, we've covered a lot of time, a lot of material. Let me get it right. In a short period of time, that's a better way to phrase it. And if someone's watching or listening and they're thinking, okay, I want to get going on this. Let's just say they have their mission or at least a decent enough one. There's so much, like you just said, you got to pick a lane and stay in it. You got to know what to do and focus on a little bit at a time. If you were to say, do this one thing, if nothing else to get started, start with one thing, what would you tell them to start with?
I'd actually tell them join the National Speakers Association, because that's how you're going to learn the business. And it's going to give you lots of resources and possibilities. If you're going, Mike, if somehow you're in a remote area of the country where that's just not anywhere near you, and it would only be national events you could go to, and you're saying, where do I go then? Then seek out a relationship with other speakers. This is so huge, Mark. It is the most giving industry that exists that I've ever known. And when I speak for other industries, they say that. They're like, wow, I hear you talk with this speaker and that speaker. I'm like, yeah, we're all friends. They're like, you all share without worrying about competition, because we have our own missions. We're not trying to really take your work or you take my work. So connect and network with speakers who are already gotten to where you're trying to go. And what I always tell people to do, try to start with somebody who's gotten a little bit of where you want to go. In other words, they've gotten to maybe making 100,000 a year and you're hoping to make 300,000 or 500,000 a year. Start with them, because if you just jump to the person making $1 million, you're trying to play their game, that could be a struggle. So start with somebody who's halfway to your goal, and then on the way, try to find somebody who's all the way to your goal, but network, learn from each other, share with each other. If you can, build a mastermind of people trying to get where you want to go.
That is an awesome way to close out. If people want to find out more about you online, where should they go?
Yeah, centerforrespect.com. Just spell it all out. Centerforrespect.com. If they just want to ask me questions or they're interested in coaching, like I said, I'm a big fan of coaching. I'd be happy to have those conversations.
Thank you so much, Mike. This has been absolutely awesome.
Thanks, Mark. You're a great interviewer. It makes it fun.
Thank you. Scene.